Hey everybody! Today we're going to continue to go over Robert McKee's great idea of taking your character to the full limits of human experience. And we're going to go into it a bit more in depth. But first, let's do a quick review of what we went over last time. So you first start by stating your theme early in the story. And let's say, for example's sake, the theme is justice. Then you're going to take your character to the next level of obstacle, which McKee calls the contrary, which for example's sake, it may be unfairness. So this value puts your character in a bit more of a bind. Then you're going to take your character and step up the level of obstacle to the contradictory or the negation. And why is it called the negation? Because this level of value negates your theme. So for example's sake, let's call that injustice, right? The theme was justice, but now it's negated by injustice. So far the character has gone from justice to unfairness to injustice. But to take that character to the full level of human experience, now the character must be taken to the negation of the negation, which for example's sake is tyranny. It's a bit of a twisted justice, right? It's taken injustice and it's sort of perverted it by making it become law. And your character must fight this level of obstacle, which takes that character to the full level of human experience. So now let's go into this a little bit more in depth. McKee says you should apply this theorem to a minimum of 3 acts. Now, doesn't mean you can't go for more, right? You can go for 4 acts, 5 acts, more, 6, 7, whatever you need to tell your story. But to get to that full level of human experience, you need a minimum of 3 acts. And there's one thing he suggests very strongly in this, it's almost kind of a golden rule, which is that during the negation of the negation, that should be saved for last. So in essence, the negation of the negation should be in your last act. It's saving your best for last. So now let's go over another example, and then I'll share an exercise that you might want to try to see if this tool can work in your writing process. So let's say the theme is truth. So then we take the character to the contrary. It's an obstacle derived from the theme that puts your character in a bit of a bind. And for example's sake, let's call it a white lie. And that's a phrase for an untruth that's not as bad as it could be, but still there's a degree of difficulty to it, especially when it's applied to the character's obstacle. Next, we go to the contradictory or the negation. It's called that because it contradicts the theme or negates the theme. And here, for example's sake, let's call it a full-blown lie or deception. So your character is lied to or deceived and has to deal with that. Then we take the character to that full limit of human experience, and we call that, or McKee calls that, the negation of the negation. And here you can think of that as a fate that's worse than death, and it has a sort of a surreal quality to it. It's the highest level of obstacle that your character will face. And for example, let's call this one self-deception, because when you think about it, being lied to is one thing, but it's really terrible to be lying to oneself. So the character has gone from truth, which is the theme, to the contrary, which is white lies, to the contradictory or negation, which is full-on deception, and then finally to the negation of the negation, which is a self-lie and lying to oneself. Again, going through the full level of human experience. So now here's an exercise to try to see if you want to use this theory in your writing.